one loss thus far. And Dembinski on the left, I think you guys had him at the beginning.
We also had him on camera. Round 1, he lost that round, and like Matt, he has not lost since his loss. However, unlike Matt, his wins have come at every stage of the tournament since round 1.
Yeah, someone's going to have to lose here. So someone's going to pick up their second loss. As we see, both players are underway. Kyle is playing Naya Blitz. He has started off with a champion of the parish, Cavern, of course, naming human.
Well, how did he cast Wild Mikado with a Cavern on a human?
That doesn't make any sense at all. Now you see a Sacred Foundry coming to play untapped and a Thalia Guardian of Thraben. Champion going to get a little bit bigger, and it's just Curry right now. Ish.
We see these turn 2 Thalia on the play. It's what delivered Kyle a win in round 1, and it's like the best opening for the champion of the parish by so much against all of these decks that are trying to cast Farseeks or removal spells on turn 2. It's just a nightmare.
Now we have a Burning Tree Shaman. This guy's going to move up, and it looks like we're going to have a Mayor of Averbrook. And you want to talk about a good start, because we just found one. Here are the beatdowns, and this is what makes this deck incredibly scary. Because if you see Matthew Hoey's here, you see an Abruptly, you see a Farseek, you see a Missing Mortars, and what you see is a bunch of cards you can't cast, and a concession right away.
That's exactly what happened in Kyle's first game of the tournament, actually. An effective, we called it a turn 3 unbeatable. Not a turn 3 kill, but...
Boy, he made that look real easy. If you're wondering how he was to be able to go 0-1-7-0, 0-1-6-0, excuse me. Yeah, that's probably how you do it. That's right there. And his deck list, for those of you guys wondering at home, is very traditional. You know, one thing about Kyle is that he normally just plays, you know, the best deck and the best version of the deck. Doesn't really normally change things up too much, and this list is very similar to the list that Nico actually won Grand Prix Quebec City with. And as AJ had brought it up earlier, you see on his deck list here, you see 4 Wild Mikado with a scratch mark through it, and then Champion of the Parish. And then the rest of the stuff is just, you know, Boros Lead, Experiment 1, Mayor of Averbrook, Lightning Mauler, Burning Tree Emissary, Flint Hoof, Boar, Frontline Medic, all 4 ofs, 3 Thalias, 1 Gorkline Rampager, and 4 Searing Spears, 20 lands. So as straightforward as you can be with this strategy.
He has cut the Giant Growths, which we commented on, that some people run in these Blitz-style decks. I think now that people know to expect Giant Growth, its power level decreases significantly.
Yep.
Before, when your opponent would wait until your turn to spear your guy for no reason at all, like hoping they catch a Silverblade Powder or something silly like that, and you just show them that they're foolish.
Yeah, the full-on punishment.
Yes, but now that everyone kind of, you know, is aware of the possibility of Giant Growth, not really the big trick that it was at that time when Nico won that GP. Matt's list, moving over to the sideboard, he's got access to a lot more cheap removal. He starts with 3 Tragic Slip in the main deck. He can go to the 4th one in post-boarded games, along with 2 Pillar of Flames.
Okay.
So going to 6 1-drops, basically, to try and match Kyle play for play. He also has an additional Bonfire of the Damned to put him to 4. If he can Miracle one of those, it's going to be pretty big, like every time. The Naya Blitz deck is usually vulnerable to getting Bonfired.
It doesn't have to be a huge
if you can get rid of the champion. Yeah. Beyond that, like cards like Boros Elite, you know, Mayor of Averbrook, these are not the most resilient of creatures in the face of small amounts of damage.
Inclined to agree. One of the things that, you know, you have to do against this Naya Blitz deck is, you know, all the creatures work very well in conjunction with each other. Mayor obviously pumping the team, and Boros Elite needing a little help, and Experiment 1 needing its friends to come along with it. But if you can kind of break up the swarm a little bit with some pinpoint removal here and there, you can make the creatures rather embarrassing. But you do have to have those removal spells in a timely fashion. You certainly cannot falter, as Hoey did in the last game, or you will die before the game even gets started. Taking a look at Kyle's sideboard here, and he will be on the draw. Didn't really see him reach for a ton here, but he does have 4 copies of Boros Charm in his sideboard, which I'd imagine those would come in. You know, for some cards, you're definitely going to want to leave those Searing Spears in the deck to be able to take care of Olivia Voldaren and possibly the front end of a Thragtusk. He has 2 copies of Fiend Hunter on the sideboard, 2 copies of Bonds of Faith, 2 copies of Boros Reckoner. He actually has additional land and Cliptop Retreat for when his spells get a little bit more expensive at the sideboard. I'm not really sure what you want to board out in this particular matchup, as the deck is very cohesive in what it's trying to do, so you don't want to deviate too much from that. But maybe Kyle figures that Boros Charm is just a strict upgrade over Searing Spear, perhaps.
Yeah, it kind of depends on how scared he is of Olivia. I'm not sure. I think Huntmaster is actually the more reasonable target for Searing Spear in the matchup, because you do kind of need to keep him, you know, off the board. You don't want to let them have an additional blocker in a lot of instances. Plus, if he ever flips, he's a very big problem. The 4/4 body is bigger than every creature in the Naya Blitz deck, and flipping back is a very realistic threat to make another block or gain 2 life. You know, not good. So I think that you're right. Kyle wants at least some amount of Searing Spear. Makes me curious what he actually took out. Maybe one of the more awkward creatures like Boros Elite or Lightning Mauler. I don't know. I feel like those contribute to some of your more aggressive starts,
Yeah.
but at the same time, they're really fragile against a deck that you know could be filled with slips and bonfires.
Both players have started off with their premium 1-drops here. Hoey has his second Arbor Elf and another Overgrown Tomb, so he's going to have access to 5 mana on turn 3, while you see Kyle does start off with the scratched out Wild Mikado in the form of Champion of the Parish. You see his hand right now, too. You see 2 Experiment 1s in the back there and a mare.
Yeah, this could get really hairy really fast for Matt.
Kyle is going to have to be quick, as you see. He does have put the 2 counters on there immediately. Comes in with with Champion of the Parish. That is a 3/3. 2 copies of Experiment 1, which are pretty small. And you just took a deep sigh, and why did you do that?
Oh, I took a deep intake of breath. Matt did not have a Thragtusk in his hand, but he found one on top of the deck. Ideal for someone hitting 5 mana on the 3rd turn.
Pretty good place to have that.
Yeah, that's where you want to keep the good cards.
Dembinski draws a Boros Reckoner, a card that he cannot cast right now.
Nope.
Because of the Cavern of Souls naming human.
He brought that in from the sideboard, worth noting. That's probably a tool he imagines is quite good at chopping through Thragtusks.
Yeah, if one man can do it, it is certainly Boros Reckoner. But it's not going to be able to come to play right now, and you see his hand, he has a couple of lands there, a couple of Sacred Foundries, a Temple Garden, and a Mare of Everwhere to go with said Boros Reckoner. And you're going to see the Mare come into play here. It's not going to pump either of those Experiment ones, unfortunately. He's going to play Sacred Foundry and probably just kick the turn back, as that champion does not have any interest in tussling with a Thragtusk.
Yeah. And this Olivia Voldaren is going to be a huge game if Matt hits another red source. He's actually shy. I don't think he has it. No. He's shy a second red source or his Rootbound Crag being a stomping ground to enable him to actually play Olivia and ping. So he's not going to do that. He's just going to Farseek for another red and go for Huntmaster, which will do a really effective job of stabilizing the board. It puts the pressure on Kyle. Kyle's going to have to play a spell next turn.
Yeah, if you're going to make a concession here and not be able to cast Olivia and ping something, this is a pretty good plan B.
Yep.
I would say, which is, of course, Farseek for a stomping ground that can work with your Arbor Elves, play a Huntmaster of the Fells, get a Wolf token, get 2 more life, and really just clog up the board, which is, this is one of the things about the 9 Blitz deck that, once the board does start to get clogged up there with your Thragtusk and other things, it's really difficult for them to actually break through without a frontline medic.
Yeah, frontline medic is a key card for these situations. It lets you just bash away with Abandon. And without one, Kyle's basically just going to have to sit there and let Matt do whatever he wants because his creatures aren't resilient enough to take the heat.
I mean, as good as a card as Boros Reckoner is, and it's quite the magic card, and right now that's not even one that can save him, as Kyle is going to take 2 damage from the Sacred Foundry, and he's going to put it out there because he has to, and those Experiment ones are going to get a little bit bigger, so they will be saved from Olivia right now. But again, as you do see, a bit of a beatdown here. I don't hate this.
Yeah.
Those Experiment ones are 3/3s.
They're 3/3s. They will be able to, singleton trade with one half of Huntmaster. Guess which half they're probably going to trade with. Or with the front end of the Thragtusk, which is really the best he can hope for at this stage.
One thing you also have to keep in mind too is that if he sits, I think Kyle realizes if I just play this Boros Reckoner, make my guys bigger and sit, I'm not doing anything to help myself actually win the game.
Yeah.
I have to hope that the last card in my opponent's hand is just not very good, and hopefully things break my way. He's on the draw. His opponent has a pretty good draw thus far. Speeding out some very, very good threats, and he needs to break through this at some point. So why not now? Is I think his thought process.
Matt blocks to stabilize the most, which is correct considering he's about to untap into Olivia. He knows it's not really that important that he get a lot of card advantage on this block. He just needs to take as little damage as possible, let Olivia do all of that work.
You see him rolling up his sleeves. He's about to get his hands dirty here. Well, Olivia's about to get her hands dirty.
He's tapping his lands carefully here. He wants to make sure he leaves up the correct one. He drew another Olivia, so even if that one dies, he's got backup.
So Mare is going to go bye-bye. Olivia Voldaren is going to get a little bit bigger. And as we have seen many times before here in the booth, Glenn, and when you are doing handwritten feature matches, Olivia Voldaren has a knack for taking over games.
Yeah. It's actually been really impressive over the course of this iteration of Standard. Like after Scars of Mirrodin and everything rotated out, Olivia, had a big showing at that very first Open, I think in Cincinnati, that Todd won with blue-white-red control. But Olivia was clearly the story, I think, of the event. It was just a huge card, showed up in a lot of decks. And it's just continued to perform in these Jund mid-range decks. It's It's incredible, actually, how unbeatable a hill giant can be.
Yeah, I mean,
when you tack on enough text.
When you first saw Olivia Voldaren when it was released, you looked at that card and you said, man, that's one heck of a Magic card. Then you played against it in Limited and you said, I don't ever want to play against this card again.
Yep.
But now, it doesn't really surprise anyone to see it kind of have this effect on Constructed, where this is a card that you have to answer right away or the game is going to end. And you see there, Kyle drew another land, he just conceded because he's not going to be able to beat Olivia. It's too big now. Searing Spear's not going to be able to take care of it. He doesn't have anything that can actually take care of it. So you can say Matt Hoey won that game, but Olivia, take it down.
Yeah, Olivia did the trick. Interestingly, that concession does kind of point out to Matt that Kyle doesn't have Selesnya Charm, which isn't a commonly played card, but would be like one of Kyle's only outs in the situation.
Yep.
So it's a little bit of minor information gained there.
I mean, some information or any information is good information.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
You can definitely file that away and know that if you're Olivia doesn't die to Spear, you're pretty good.
I've played Olivia against opponents with Selesnya Charm before, and it can be tricky. She still is, often good enough to win the game, but you want to maximize that second damage that you deal most of the time in order to get a creature that will kill them in the case that she dies.
And though Olivia is a fantastic Magic card, you do have to be careful with it, as we saw last round. You don't want that thing to get Zealous Conscript to be the thing that kills you. So management of Olivia is key. Something I don't think that Matt Hoey is going to have much of a problem with. Very adept and magician. A player who, in his first Pro Tour Seattle last year, he made a deep run into that tournament. Was X2 for a while there before things started to kind of stop breaking his way. But this is a kid who, we've had him on the Open Series. He's had quite a bit of success in the Open Series. You always see him playing the Invitationals and the Chicago Level 1s, top 8ing there. He's a good Magic player.
Yeah, prior to that Pro Tour, I actually a little bit jinxed myself when discussing Matt Hoey as a player. I said, he's not the kind of guy that's going to win the next Pro Tour or anything. And then he started off that Pro Tour so strong. I was like, whew, I might just be eating my words a little bit. And I'd be happy to see him do it, honestly. He's a great guy, shows up to all these tournaments, generally plays pretty tight Magic, and like we discussed, hasn't really gotten his just desserts there, as far as trophies go. Wouldn't mind handing him one.
Yeah, still waiting to break through, I think. As far as, the players who are kind of up on the rise, a new crop of Magic players are kind of breaking through and cycling in. Your Michael Hetricks of the world, your Ricky Siders, maybe those guys on the West Coast, in their early 20s. Many moons ago, we were trying to break through ourselves. I think this is one of the people who people are going to become intimately familiar with, as he does come across through this circuit and, makes it on the Pro Tours consistently, which I think he's very much capable of.
Amusingly, the first thing Matt said to me when he saw me this week, actually, or this weekend, I should say, was, you got to stop beating me in those queues, because we've gotten paired 3 times this week just playing Standard in the 8-man and 2-man queues. Yeah. And he's the only person I've been beating playing Jund. Every other Jund matchup I've lost.
That's actually
including
is this modern or no?
This was Standard.
Okay.
His friend Andrew Tenjum and he were in the same 8-man playing the same 75. And I beat Matt in the quarters and then lost to Tendrum in the finals. Matt just couldn't stand it.
You can't get one by you. And, we don't talk much about Kyle Dembinski on the left here, but again, this is a guy who's played on multiple Pro Tours, has won many PTQs. So this is a seasoned veteran who lives in this area, has played versus that former card game to much success, actually won a versus pro circuit as well. So this is a player that can game. Make no mistake about it. To see him go 0-1, 6-0 and still be in contention for top 8 is of no surprise to me.
No.
Kind of your pros pro. People who are ingrained into Magic, especially in this area, or have been playing Magic for a while, they know who Kyle Dembinski is. They know he can sling a spell or two.
Yeah, I know he's a player Arilax holds in high regard. They've worked together for a number of years, hailing from RIW, both originally. I think they've each been transplanted to different areas now, but.
So we are underway here for Game 3. Both players are keeping their 7 cards. Kyle's going to lead off with the Stomping Ground into an Experiment 1. So, not champion of the parish, but still a pretty gosh darn good start. As you see Hoey slicing through his hand right now. I believe we do see a Farseek in there, and a whole bunch of removal, yes.
Pillar Flame, Abrupt Decay, Bonfire of the Damned, and Liliana of the Veil, all in his hand. I think he has a Murder, too, and a Thragtusk. Whew. Oh my.
He's going to need the lands to cast it all, but he does have a pretty good hand so far. A little surprised to see him not pillar that guy on turn 1.
Yeah, I think he's holding it for a potential Thalia, is my guess.
He can really open himself up here to, a Burning Emissary plus another guy to make that Experiment 1 bigger, and then that would be a bit of an issue, but it looks like he's dodged that bullet, as Kyle does just have a Lightning Mauler, and he chooses not to Soul Bond up.
Interesting.
In Kyle's hand, you do see a Flames of the Firebrand, a Searing Spear, a Champion of the Parish, and a Flip-Hoof Boar. And maybe he's thinking to himself, I don't have the land for the Flip-Hoof Boar right now, and Pillar of the Flame is going to take care of that Champion of the Parish. So maybe he needs to go, you know, the hard way to give it haste. And he draws a Boros Elite.
Ooh.
Flip-Hoof
Boar, now he'll bond.
All right, so in for 5.
Awkward, but yeah. I mean, 5's 5.
5's 5 all day long. So down to 13 goes Hoey. Let's see if Hoey has a land. He does.
Yep, he's got an additional one. He's
Cemetery.
peeled Runner lands, so he's going to be able to curve out these removal spells. He's too big to Bonfire. I imagine we'll see him murdering Flint-Hoof Boar or Abrupt Decaying Flint-Hoof Boar. Probably the former this turn.
Yeah, I think he's going to want to use all of his mana. You see Experiment win the draw here for Kyle. I think the turn starts by attacking, and that's exactly what he's going to do.
He's going for the Abrupt Decay.
Oh, he's going to use Abrupt Decay in the Flint-Hoof Boar.
Interesting.
That might come back to bite him just from a, you know, being able to use as much mana efficiently as possible.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious about it.
Here's a Champion of the Parish. There's an Experiment 1. Champion's going to become a 2/2. And that Lightning Mauler, of course, is going to be able to give a guy haste, and we know that he is sandbagging a Boros Elite, so that's something else to keep in mind. But we also do know, Glenn, that there's a Bonfire of the Damned for 1 looming over here as well.
Yeah, I imagine he's going to have to go for that here. It's too risky that he'll just get knocked way. He could be, you know, on like 3 life or something next turn if he doesn't do it. So, yeah, he's going to go for it.
So there is your Bonfire for 1, taking care of the Lightning Mauler and the Experiment 1. Champion living as it is a 2/2. Kyle's going to draw a card. Does draw a land finally in the Cavern of Souls. Boros Elite can make this guy a little bit bigger, and we'll see exactly what he names with that. Does name human and comes across for 3, so Hoey's going to go down to 8.
Yep.
But we know he has that land for the Thragtusk now.
I find naming human pretty interesting here. He can cast all of his humans without it. I think it might have been more prudent to go for the Minotaur or Wizard if he kept those Reckoners in.
Yeah, if he kept them in, that's the question. And so now we're going to see Hoey move up in life.
We're going to see this guy take a spear in the
Yeah,
step,
I think you
sure.
got to see a spear plus a flames here, probably, right?
Yeah. Well, if Kyle draws any other human, then he actually won't even need to burn the flames. He can just send the champion, and it won't be that big a deal. And
Burning Tree Emissary is actually like the perfect draw.
Now he can do both.
Yeah, as he can actually cast both cards, clear that out of the way. So, talk about a good draw step. That's certainly one of them. Here come the meatheads.
Yeah. That was, I think, basically the best draw step, as it also sets up Battalion on the next turn. And it really just forces Matt to answer what's going on here. And Olivia will do the trick.
Hoey draws an Olivia Valdarin. Now this is interesting too, because now he also has he has a 6th land in the form of Woodland Cemetery. Checking for 4 black, he does have that, so he can actually go Liliana plus Murder this turn if he wants to.
Oh yeah.
Or he can cast Olivia and shoot.
I think both are highly viable lines. He may want to go with the Olivia here because he knows that he can avoid dying. And Kyle is just peeling off the top of the deck. I can't think of anything that would just straight up kill him, right? If he just plays Olivia and kills that Boros Elite.
Well, the scary thing there, as you're going to see, the scary thing there is you're going to see Liliana plus Murder. It looks like is that if he does play Olivia and shoots down the Boros Reckoner, and let's say Kyle attacks him with the Champion of the Parish for 4. Hoey would have to make the decision on if he wants to block or not, because if he does go down to 4, he would be in Boros turn range.
Sure, but that's not a card he's actually seen yet, so I feel like it wouldn't really be on my radar. As long as I'm above 3, I think I'm okay with it. And untapping with Olivia in play, as we all know.
So yeah, that should just about do it.
So he's put Kyle to the decision here. What Kyle doesn't know is obviously one of his guys is about to get murdered too. And note that the use of Abrupt Decay versus Murder did not come back to bite Matt here. So
I think that's the right one to sacrifice. You know, Kyle's kind of weighing the decision on if I draw a Lightning Mauler, what happens
or
here.
a Boar.
Yeah. And you're going to see Murder take care of this right away.
Kyle went with the safer choice, and the second removal spell makes the safer choice much more correct.
So now, if you're Kyle, you also have the decision now of, do I want to attack that Liliana or my opponent? You know, Liliana's not threatening until 2 turns from now, because, you know, you let the discard happen, you're fine with that. And then the next turn it's going to eat a guy. But you have to assume, you probably have to assume if you're Kyle that my opponent probably has something. But at the same time, maybe if you're Kyle, you're thinking, I just have to draw, you know, spells for the rest of this game. And so you see a Boros Elite come in, Pillar of Flame the draw, and it's a pretty gosh darn good one.
It is. I don't think it's going to wind up actually mattering, because he's going to just play Olivia and probably just ping Boros Elite, right? Now does he plus the Olivia? I think you don't. The Pillar of Flame is effectively an edict itself. So discarding it to gain an edict is actually not very useful.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. It's one of the few times where I actually think we're not activating a Planeswalker is correct.
Yeah.
Those times are few and far between. You saw Hoey think about it for a little while and chooses not to. Kyle draws his card.
You know, of the Planeswalkers that it's not correct to activate, I think Liliana is the one that comes up for the most.
Yeah.
That small percentage of the time.
There's a Thalia, Garden of Thraben.
That's not going to do it against that Olivia. It's the exact opposite of doing it.
Hoey draws a Huntmaster of the Fells. That's a very good card for him to draw right now, as he can actually just play all of the cards in his hand now. He can pillar away either that Thalia or that Burning Tree Emissary, actually cast Huntmaster, and then uptick the Liliana. And what you've seen in this game is actually just full use of mana every turn. You know, he could have gone with the Murder and then the Abrupt Decay, but he's maximized his mana every single turn.
And this is going to put Matt just, I think, out of range at this point. This game is so far removed from Kyle's control, even though he's gotten Matt to 6. Or to 8, sorry, we haven't updated for the Huntmaster. You know, it would take Runner Boros Charms, a card we don't even know he brought in.
Yeah, that's the out right now. And you see a Thalia and you see a concession here, as Kyle knows that this one is all but over because of Levy Valdarin plus everything else that's on the table. So Matt Hoey breaks Kyle's winning streak, and Hoey is going to keep on chugging along.